Imagine you have 10 seconds left to live. Not you personally, but your community, your Saturday ritual, the club that your granddad took you to see when you were 6. It's May 8, 1999. It's Brunton Park, the home of Carlisle United. The air is thick with the smell of cheap burgers and genuine soul-crushing despair. The referee, he's checking his watch. The fans, they're literally crying in the stands. Carlisle are heading out of the Football League after 71 years. It's over. The obituary is written. And then a man who's been at the club a little more than a couple of weeks decides he isn't ready to go home just yet. This is the story of Jimmy Glass. The goalkeeper, the loanee, the man who performed a miracle so big it should actually be illegal. Now, to understand why this was the greatest escape in history, you have to understand the sheer unmitigated mess that Carlisle United found themselves in back in 1999. This wasn't just any tough season, this was a slow motion car crash. The owner at the time was Michael Knighton, and if you know your 90s football, you know that name should ring a bell. Knighton famously did keepy-uppies on the pitch at Old Trafford because he thought he'd bought Manchester United. Spoiler alert, he hadn't. He bought Carlisle instead. By 1999, the fans were protesting, the money had gone and the team found themselves at the bottom of the Football League. Then the final blow. Their star goalkeeper Tony Kaye gets sold to Blackpool just weeks before the end of the campaign. Then their backup keeper also gets injured and now they're staring at the drop into non-league football. Back then, that was just a financial black hole you didn't simply climb out of. With 3 games left, they panicked. They rang Swindon Town and said, "Who have you got?" Swindon had a look around to their credit and found Jimmy Glass. Jimmy was a bit of a journeyman, so he was happy to hop in his car and journey all the way up to Carlisle. What awaited him in Cumbria was a dressing room full of men who looked like they were waiting for a funeral. Final day of the season and the maths are simple yet brutal. Carlisle are bottom, but Scarborough are just 1 point above them. Carlisle need to beat Plymouth while hoping that Scarborough cannot get a win over Peterborough United. Even a draw might just have been enough for Scarborough to have stayed up at Carlisle's expense. For 90 minutes it's torture, absolute torture. Plymouth score and Brunton Park goes deathly silent. Then Carlisle equalise, it's 1-1, but over at Scarborough it's also a draw as well. And as things stood, Carlisle were dropping out of the Football League. The whistle blows at Scarborough, the game is over, their fans are on the pitch, they're popping the champagne, they think they have done enough to avoid relegation. Back at Carlisle, there are 4 minutes of injury time to go. 4 more minutes to save 71 years of history. We're now in the final minute of stoppage time. Carlisle win a corner, the final roll of the dice. Jimmy Glass looks at the dugout. He's a keeper, he's got no right to be in the penalty box. But manager Nigel Pearson, yes, that same Nigel Pearson who went on to take Leicester into the Premier League, gives Jimmy the signal to go forward, to forget about his goal and try and grab one at the other end to keep Carlisle in the Football League. Up trots Jimmy wearing their somewhat oversized goalkeeper shirt and looking fairly out of place in a box normally taken up by attackers and defenders looking to head one into the back of the net. But this is what Jimmy was looking to do himself. The corner comes in from the right. It's a good ball. It isn't Jimmy who gets his head on it, though. It's Scott Dovey. However, the Plymouth goalkeeper, he parries it back out into play. There is still a chance here for Carlisle. The ball falls seemingly in slow motion. Everyone inside Brunton Park is holding their breath, waiting for one last shot at goal that could keep Carlisle in the Football League. Who is it going to fall to? Is it their star striker? Is it one of their midfielders? Oh no. It's Jimmy Glass. The man who has only been at the club a couple of weeks. The man who doesn't even have a permanent contract at the club. Boom. What a strike. What a goal. Jimmy swung his right boot at it. A perfectly timed volley. And it sailed into the back of the net to send Carlisle sailing above Scarborough in the standings. The crowd at Brunton Park, they let out the most euphoric roar you will have heard in your lifetime. Even the commentator on the day, Derek Lacey, starts screaming, "The goalkeeper has scored! The goalkeeper has scored!" And who could blame him? Naturally, of course, it leads to its own pitch invasion. Thousands upon thousands of bodies on the pitch, all celebrating that wonderful strike from Jimmy Glass. Meanwhile, the Scarborough fans, this was back in the day of transmitter radios, not mobile phones. They were hearing this come through one by one rather than getting alerts and checking Twitter or any other social media. They had to rely on the old-fashioned medium of radios. And when that news came through, well, it obviously didn't go down too well with them, did it? They were heartbroken. They thought they'd done it just enough, and instead it was Jimmy Glass who shattered their dreams. In 10 seconds, the landscape of English football had changed completely. By now you're probably thinking, this sounds like a Hollywood film, so it must have a Hollywood ending. Unfortunately, that's where the good news stops. Jimmy never played for Carlisle United again. His loan ended that night and he returned to Swindon. Swindon then released Jimmy and he journeyed around the lower leagues for a bit before retiring at the very young age of just 27. Despite all of that, he remains a god in Carlisle. To this day, he could probably walk into any pub in that city and never have to pay for a pint again. He is the ultimate definition of a one-hit wonder. But that euphoria enjoyed by Carlisle fans that day is a reminder of why we bother with this sport, why we put up with the rain, why we put up with the bad pies, why we put up with the bad decisions and the losing streaks. Because once in a lifetime, the Matrix glitches. Once in a lifetime, that on-loan goalkeeper who had no right to be in the opposition box wades in and scores an absolute wonder strike to keep your team up in only his third game and his final game. If you want to feel that madness again, then stick around. I'm going through the archives every week to find the moments that shouldn't have happened, but did. Next time we're talking about how a Caribbean Cup game got extremely confusing, which led to both teams chasing own goals. Sounds odd? Absolutely it was. I'm Ned Keating, hit subscribe and I'll see you for the next one.